Let's take a look at nested loops. And nested loops are a lot easier than a lot of people think. Let's imagine we have an array, for example, that includes mixed data, for example. It doesn't really matter too much. You can give this whatever name you want. And let's say we have an array, and inside of this array, we have a couple more arrays. So essentially nested arrays. And our first array, for example, includes a couple of numbers. Our second array could include a couple of animals, for example, so a monkey or a zebra. And our third array could include true or false values, for example. So let's say true and false. And now let's say we want to loop over this array. So there are a lot of ways to do it, but let's in our case say we want to use a for of loop, because that would be the way to work with an array. So we're going to say for let array be of mixed data, and now let's just console.log out our array. So we're going to run this code, and now you can see we're getting 1, 2, 3, monkey, zebra, true and false as separate arrays, as you can see right here. Since we have a nested array, we will also need to use a nested for loop, because in our first iteration we are looping over this array. So in iteration 1 we get this item right here, in iteration 2 we get this item right here, and in the third iteration we get this item right here. But if we want to access the items inside of the nested array, so essentially the individual items right here, we obviously have to use another for of loop to get or to loop over the individual items. So inside of our first iteration, for example, we are getting this item right here. So let's create inside of this first iteration another for let value of array, and now we're going to console.log this value. So let me explain this to you again. And I obviously need to use those brackets right here. So this was my bad. So in the first iteration of mixed data, we are getting this array right here. This array contains this array right here. So this array variable contains this array right here in the first iteration. Now, inside of this first iteration, we are again calling a for of loop. And now we are looping over this element right here, because this is the element that we are holding inside of our array variable. So now we say, for every single iteration, one of those values will be equal to this value, or will be stored inside of this value variable. So again, we are in the first iteration for this outer loop, and now for the first iteration of this inner loop, we will store the value 1. So we're going to console.log the value 1. Now we're going to the second iteration, so once we reach the end of this for loop, we're going back to the start of this for loop. So now we have the value 2 for this for loop, and we will print out this value right here. Now we go again to the third value, we take the third value, print it out, we are going back, and now we see, okay, this array is pretty much done, so we are going to finish this for loop. So we are going to go to the next line. We reach the end of this for loop now, so we are going back to the start of this for loop. Now again, let array of mixed data, we're going to get the second array of our mixed data array. We take this array, we go to the next line, we reach this for loop. Again, we start the value of monkey inside of this value, print it, go back to the for loop. We see zebra as the second item, print our zebra, go back, we see, okay, there's no more item inside of this array, so let's keep going. We are going to the end. We see, okay, for loop is over, we are jumping to the beginning again. And this is really how this executes. And I really wanted to explain this properly. I really hope you understood this. I know this can be maybe a little bit confusing for a lot of beginners, but you will definitely get this pretty fast once you're trying to and once you're working with it.